Hey, yeah, so I think I've said it before, but one of my favorite things about filmmaking is just the delayed gratification of it, and just all of the different types of things you have to do, to all the different things you have to bring together. The edit and the music, and getting everybody, pre-production and production, and even with VFX, a lot of times every single shot is its own collection of problems. You have to problem solve and spend days just to, make a second and a half that you get to put in a timeline. And every time I finish something, every time I put something in the timeline, it feels like I'm actually putting it behind this dam that's slowly filling up with water, with this like increasing pressure. And I know when I release the episode, I get to open up the sluice or whatever, and release the whole thing at once, and that's really fun. But yeah, with the boat shoot wrapped up, and the Pete episode done, and the Sterling episode almost ready to go, I'm feeling the constant just weight of all of this stuff up behind the dam, and I want to open the gate so bad, which means I have to finish the Sterling episode. So I've been jumping into that. I've been making a few kind of digital cutaways and fixing up old shots. You don't even know there's a difference, but it's stuff that was bugging me. And I like being able to make these kind of close-up cutaways, because honestly, all of this is just gibberish. It's just random pieces from different airplanes that I scanned and kind of put together in a cave shape. And it's fun to have like a close-up that shows some actual information that implies maybe it isn't all gibberish. All of these meters right here are actually just all different objects with, here, I'll show you. Each gauge is its own object, and the meter itself is just its own material, where I'm offsetting a gradient texture by offsetting the texture coordinates back and forth based off of kind of a random input. And if that doesn't make any sense, I'll link below to the scrolling sign tutorial that I made a while back, and it's basically the exact same thing. It's a technique I love for doing stuff like this. Whoa, and then you can just offset everything kind of globally, and it randomizes a little bit. It also just helps a little bit of the visual storytelling, where you can establish certain things are happening without having to have like a pop-up text display saying what's going on, I guess. Anyways, I made the kind of space lighting tutorial a month ago, but I think the biggest question people had was actually, where did I find the HDRI environment map for the background? And the truth is, I didn't have a good one. I cheated a little bit. This background here is actually just a giant card with a picture of the galaxy on it. Although I did use gradients to kind of feather off the alpha around the edges of the image, which is actually a really useful technique, especially if you're using like stock footage or something that maybe isn't perfectly constrained by the edges of the footage. And that helped me blend it in with the rest of the kind of low-res HDRI that I had around the rest of the scene. And here, if I turn the rest of the sky like gray, you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. See, it's just feathered off around the edges, which is really handy, especially for like mixing and matching these pictures like this. Now they can kind of blend together a little bit easier without having an obvious seam, which is useful for a lot of reasons. But yeah, it's kind of a hack. Obviously, you can't move the camera too much or the parallax issue becomes a problem. There's actually in a few renders I did, you can see the fact that the stars are kind of like a flat plane in the background. I was finally able to fix that by using a copy location constraint, so that the plane is always the same distance from the camera. Like, the camera can still look around, but you're not going to get that parallax issue. But anyways, I finally decided to Google it, and NASA's actually released some absolutely phenomenal star maps. And while anyone could find this who did a quick Google, I had enough people asking me how I was doing it on my end that I figured I would share the best answer I found. I'm going to show you how to set these up quick, and then I'm going to show you how to set up your own procedurally, just because these can become really heavy really quick if you don't have like a great system. So they give you two options here. This one, the celestial coordinates, I think better emulates what it's supposed to look like from Earth. It's lined up with something like that. This S-curve looks really weird, but once you have it wrapped around a spherical environment map, that actually straightens out. But they have another version too, which is pre-straightened, and this is just kind of like lined up with the galaxy. And what's really cool is they actually separate it if you want. This one's like 1.7 dim stars with the Milky Way, and you can download the bright stars separately, so you can kind of apply them on your end. And look at this, if you go download options, you can start off with 4K, 8K, all the way up to 65,000 pixels across, 3 gigabytes. That's huge. That would absolutely kill my Blender. I get scared doing anything higher than 8K, but let's download the 8K version of both this one and the associated bright star maps. Hopping into Blender here, let's pull open the shader editor and go from object to world, because we're going to be affecting the world environment map. Let's delete our wonderful cube. And I have Node Wrangler activated in the add-on preferences, so I can just select this node and hit Control-T. Brings up the image and associated mapping nodes, which is cool, which means I can just hit open. Find the one I want, 2020 8K galactic coordinates. Okay. And look at that. Oh, that looks so good. And down here we have, nobody told me about the Magellanic Clouds until I was like 28, and I found out, wait, we have 2 galaxies orbiting the Milky Way, and everybody in the southern hemisphere can just see them all the time? No idea. It's incredible. I've never seen them. I want to go see them in real life someday. Okay, but even at 8K, once it's wrapped all the way around here, if we add a camera and zoom in a little bit, you start to see it looks like noise. I think this is actually just what 1.7 billion stars looks like. But you can see you don't have quite as much resolution as you could hope. So there really is a reason to want to download those higher res versions if your computer can handle it. It's just having giant image textures is the fastest way I know of to make Blender kind of start to slow down on my end, at least. That's why it's kind of fun too that you can download maybe a lower res version of the background stuff of just like the Milky Way and combine it with maybe a higher res version of those bright stars we were talking about. So here, I'm going to duplicate this, use a color mix RGB, drag that down there, and change the mix to add. Right now it's just going to be adding it to itself and being twice as bright, but we can change this to the bright stars with the galactic coordinates here, and we should see an overlay. Yeah, there we go. So now we can kind of dial all of this in. And one thing I think is kind of cool is maybe here, let's go color, RGB curves, and I'm going to turn the background way down here. And maybe turn the stars down, the bright stars down a little bit too. Just keep it a little bit more subtle. And yeah, oh, that works so good. There's a few things like if you zoom in far enough, these stars just kind of turn into blobs. Let's see if we can do something kind of fun. Let's see if this crashes my computer. I never know where exactly, like if I use the same image texture twice, does that count for holding twice as much space in the RAM, or can I use it as many times as I want and the RAM only holds it once? I have no idea, but here, let's use this. Add this to itself again. And if we rotate this 90 degrees, does that look cool? No, that does not look cool. But this process is really cool, and you're probably wondering, what's the license? What's the usage of these images? From what it says in the copyright information, basically, unless it says otherwise, this is all in the public domain, but you should still credit the people it says to credit, which you can find right down here at the bottom. It says to credit Ernie, Lawrence, and Ian, and it also says to credit I would just credit everybody. Can't hurt anything. But as long as I've got you here, okay, let's say your computer can't handle these giant, 16K images loaded in. What if you just want to do it procedurally? Well, there's actually a really easy way, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to talk about this, but if I only talked about things that nobody's ever talked about before, I would talk about nothing ever. So here, let's go into the world here, and we'll go into rendered view. First things first, I'm just going to make the color black because space is very dark. And then Shift A, texture, Voronoi. You knew we were going to go with Voronoi. Plug the distance down into the color, and it looks like we're inside a ghost cells. Ghost cells. Yeah, this is what a ghost cells would look like. Converter, color ramp, stick that in the middle there, and if we swap these, suddenly we get all these kind of white lumps. And if we bring this down, it looks kind of like bad stars. That's perfect. Here, if we turn the scale way up, like let's make it 50. Yeah, there we go. Those are some good. That's a nice star distribution, and you can control how big they are here with this slider. I'm just gonna keep them nice and small. Actually, maybe even smaller than that. So one thing that's cool is we can start to layer these. So I'm gonna duplicate this, add a color mix RGB node here. Drag this in, and I'm going to add in, here, let's change this to add, and I just get to crank the scale, let's say like 150. And now the star is a little bit too small, so maybe we make them a little bit larger, and you can just really easily control the density of everything this way. So here, I'm going to make these brighter ones a little bit dimmer, these ones a little bit dimmer, and let's add a third level on top of all of this. Just duplicate all of this, drag this down into here, and use this previous mix node as the other input here. And let's change this to like, I don't know, 20. And yeah, now we just get some nice big ones there. Maybe more like 25. Shrink them just a little bit. And yeah, just by modifying all of this, you can really dial in the look of your stars, which I like, because one thing I was having problems with doing my scene was that when I zoomed in, everything got really blurry really quick, because any image map that's large enough to wrap around your entire scene, that's also high enough res that you can really zoom in on it, is just going to be absolutely huge. But if you're going procedural, it's no problem. So here, if we zoom in like this and we go, oh, this is now kind of sparse, we can just crank these up here and fill in our star field however we want to, which is cool. One thing I like, kind of from a world building perspective, is because you've just invented your own sky, you get to invent your own constellations. You get to kind of look and be like, okay, what do I see here? Obviously, there's only one thing to see. There's like a big nose man here. Kind of got that going on. Here's his head. Here's his single hair. Yes, of course. And so for millennia, dads have been like, do you see his giant nose? And kids are like, no, Dad, I don't see his giant nose. He's got his little bow tie going on right here, and he's got a big beefy arm going on with like the muscles coming up so he can grab his telephone, I guess. Here we go. Honestly, Ancient Man was pretty fast and loose with their constellations too, I feel. Here, if I turn this off, can you still see it? Nope, not at all. Okay. Well, just wanted to talk about that real quick. Hopefully that's useful to somebody. I'm gonna go try to finish this episode. Oh, let me tell you really quick. So it was really fun. Lex is living out at the property now, and I was having a conversation with him like, hey, what if we built kind of half of a bar using some of the stuff we already have, back in Shed A? And the next day, he went out and it's basically done. So we're gonna go out. We're gonna give it a bunch of love. It's supposed to be like a bar built in the bottom of like an old industrial crane. So we're gonna try to figure out how to kind of incorporate that a little bit better. And we're doing it by the green screen so we can kind of blend the two, which is what I always wanted. I wanted to have like a little corner set where everything can be practical and we can give it a lot of practical love and attention, but also just being able to have it blend into a green screen set where somebody can walk in from the distance through like some CG doors and kind of sit down in a real chair. To me, that's really cool. Actually, never mind. Okay, I should finish this tutorial because these are good for stars, but and maybe these stars are a little bit too big or whatever. But we have to add a little bit more randomness, like space clouds or whatever. And honestly, now this just gets into different noise textures and multiplying them and layering them even more until it becomes a big spaghetti mess. And none of us are in the mood for that right now. But here, let's go texture. Noise texture, there it is. Plug the factor into the other one. We're going to multiply the two values here, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on, but actually I don't see anything going on here. If I control shift click on this, what's going on? Oh, it's just very small. Okay, so let's see if we make it more like 1 or something like that. Yeah, there we go. That's cool. I'm going to use a color ramp here and make some of the dark areas even darker and the bright areas even brighter. So then when we, let's add a little bit more detail here and change the scale. Okay, now we'll multiply this by the other one, and that should make all of these stars feel a little bit less uniform. And yeah, that actually does quite a bit. Here I might turn the scale down a little bit. And you actually make everything darker, maybe even bring this up a little bit. And just this as opposed to this just feels a lot more natural to me, as if there's kind of things are being obscured. We could do the same thing here. I'm just going to keep adding stuff as we go along. So here, bring this over. Let's add another color mix RGB node. We're going to add in a gradient here. Texture, gradient texture. Plug that factor into the color here. That's cool. Here, Control T brings up those mapping nodes I was talking about, and we're going to rotate it on which axis here? 90 degrees on this axis? Nope, let's try this one. Yeah, there we go, there we go. Okay, I'm going to tweak this gradient converter, color ramp here. Instead of going from black to white here, I'm going to go from black to white back to black, so we kind of get this fuzzy band here. We're just trying to do a cheap Milky Way type thing. It's probably not going to look very good. I'm going to offset the coordinates, let's see, up, probably 0.5. Now we have it centered around the thing here. And let's change this to ease. That might make it feel a little bit nicer, maybe. And the thing is, we want this really, really dim. And in fact, if we want the band even narrower, we could, bring these in. But I think this is kind of okay, because I want kind of that whole fuzzy area. And we can change the color, too. Here, let's make it kind of like a warmer kind of galaxy type feeling. Okay, so we've got this band, but it's too perfect. So let's see if we can add kind of a cloud kind of thing. what's the best way to do this? This is not going to look good, except unless if you keep it really, really faint, especially compared to like the really good NASA ones we were just looking at. But let's just do a noise texture here and multiply it over. So here, I'm going to copy this one, just bring it down here, change it to multiply, and we'll multiply our noise over it. Let's find a good noise scale that's that feels right for Galaxy. Converter, color ramp. Want our dark bits, we want our bright bits. Drag that down into here, and if we turn the factor up, yeah, it's fine. Again, we want to just keep it. We'll keep it really dim, and it might kind of feel like something kind of interesting. We could also make it blue because space is blue, I guess. And if you want, you can kind of rotate the band too, so it could be a different kind of orientation, just kind of moving through the background. That's actually, you know, that's not so bad. That's kind of cool. And I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to copy that entire kind of Milky Way thing we just did, and I'm going to add it on top of itself so that I can try narrowing it up and kind of adding a denser band in the middle. So let's see. This is all blue here. So let's see, I'm going to change it from multiply to add. Sorry, it's so small. Zoom in a second. Ooh, yeah, that looks pretty cool. Here, I'm going to tuck it in a little bit so we just get that dense band right in the middle. I'm going to change the scale of the noise texture for that band to just be a little bit smaller and a little bit darker. I only want like little patches of it. Here, we'll turn up the multiply. That's actually looking okay. And here, what if we change the saturation just a little bit? Oh, I'm glad we took the extra time. That feels quite a bit better. And then let's see, for the very last touch, let's see if I can screw this all up at the very last second. Let's go into the mapping nodes here, and you can see this is for that core band. We can offset it up and down. Let's try to randomize that a little bit, which means we have to do something a little bit crazy. Let's see, combine XYZ. The problem is that it only has one socket here for all three of these values, which means we can't just plug something into one of those values. So this is basically just this, but with three separate sockets here. So I'm going to plug that in instead, copy that 0.5 that was there, which should recenter it. And now if I create a noise texture and plug it into the X, do we get anything interesting? Hey, look at that, we do. This is just what I wanted. We're basically using these noise textures to add random offset to the location of the gradient in the sky. So we're actually here, if I go to this view here, the more I turn up the scale, the denser the warble gets, which is interesting, and that's exactly what I wanted. Okay. Yeah, sorry, that turned out better than I expected. Anyways, I'll stop being pleased with myself and actually end the video for real this time. Okay. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.